November 14th, 2026. At 2:17 in the morning, a fisherman named Daniel Reed pulled something out of Lake Michigan that changed his life forever. He thought it was an old piece of metal. Then it moved. Daniel had been fishing alone nearly 8 miles from shore when his net suddenly became impossibly heavy. He tried pulling it in. Nothing. Then the rope tightened, not from the weight of the net, from something pulling back. Daniel grabbed the engine controls and tried to move away. The rope snapped, and whatever had been beneath his boat disappeared into the darkness. For almost a minute there was nothing, no waves, no wind, no sound. Then something struck the bottom of his boat. Once Daniel froze. Another strike, twice, then a third, and suddenly the lake became completely still. Daniel looked over the side. Something was rising through the black water. Not a fish, not a person, something enormous. Then his net surfaced, and inside it was a golden object covered in strange symbols. Daniel reached down and pulled it aboard. The moment his hand touched it, every light on Lake Michigan went out. But that wasn't the terrifying part. The terrifying part was the voice Daniel heard inside his head. A voice that sounded like it had been waiting beneath the lake for thousands of years. It whispered only 4 words: "You found my prison." And Daniel had no idea. He had just caught a god. Daniel Reed wasn't looking for anything supernatural. He was looking for enough fish to pay his bills. He was 38 years old and had spent most of his life around Lake Michigan. His father had been a fisherman. His grandfather had been a fisherman. Daniel had always believed the lake was dangerous, but he respected it. That was different from fearing it. Until that night. The weather forecast had predicted calm conditions. Instead, a strange fog had appeared over the lake. Daniel almost turned around. Almost. But his boat needed repairs. His mortgage was overdue. His daughter Lily had recently started asking why other kids had things she couldn't afford. So Daniel stayed. He dropped his net, and at 2:17 in the morning, something grabbed it. Daniel brought the strange object into his cabin. It looked like a mask, but it wasn't shaped like a human face. It had long, almost impossibly narrow features, 2 empty eye sockets, and symbols running across the forehead. The metal was warm. That made no sense. The object had been sitting at the bottom of a freezing lake. Daniel placed it on the table. Then he heard something. A whisper. He turned around. Nobody was there. The whisper came again. Below. Daniel looked toward the floor. Water began dripping from the ceiling, then from the walls, then from beneath the table. Within seconds, the entire cabin floor was covered in a thin layer of water. Daniel stepped backward. The water suddenly formed a perfect circle around the golden mask, and beneath the water, he saw a city. The vision lasted only 3 seconds, but Daniel saw enough. Massive stone towers, statues taller than buildings, roads disappearing into darkness, and thousands of strange lights glowing beneath the water. At the center stood an enormous temple. Something was chained to it. Daniel didn't know what it was, but it was watching him. Then the vision disappeared. Daniel immediately called the Coast Guard. They searched the area. Nothing. No city, no lights, no strange object. But one officer noticed something unusual. Daniel's boat had been recorded by radar. For approximately 9 seconds, something enormous had appeared underneath it, something roughly the size of a commercial airplane. Then it vanished.
That night, Daniel dreamed about the lake. He was standing underwater, but he could breathe. Around him was the ancient city, and people were walking through the streets. Except they weren't human. Their bodies were covered in strange markings. Their eyes were completely black. Every one of them turned toward Daniel. Then they bowed, not to him, to something standing behind him. Daniel slowly turned and saw the god. It was enormous. Its body was covered in ancient armor, chains wrapped around its arms. Its face was almost human. Almost. Then the god spoke. "They told you I was the monster." Daniel woke up screaming, but there was something beside his bed. A trail of water leading toward his bedroom window. Daniel began investigating the symbols on the mask. He discovered something shocking. The symbols didn't belong to one known civilization. They were a combination of markings found across different ancient cultures, and all of them described the same event. A war beneath the ancient sea. Thousands of years ago, something lived beneath what is now North America. There were gods, there were creatures, there were cities, and there was a war. The gods won, but they couldn't kill their enemy, so they imprisoned it beneath the water. The golden mask wasn't a weapon, it was a key, and Daniel had accidentally removed it from the lake. Daniel wasn't the only person interested in the mask. A mysterious government organization arrived. They told him the object belonged to them. They knew exactly what it was, and they knew what Daniel had seen, because this wasn't the first time someone had found one.
A similar object had been recovered from Lake Michigan in 1912. Another was discovered in 1968, and another in 1999. Every person who found one disappeared. Daniel asked the obvious question, "Why am I still alive?" The agent looked at him and said, "You're not." Daniel returned to the lake. He threw the mask back into the water. Nothing happened. Then the entire lake began moving. Not like waves, like something underneath it was breathing. A massive shape rose beneath the surface. Daniel heard the god again. This time the voice was clearer. "I didn't choose you because you're strong." Daniel asked, "Then why me?" The god answered, "Because you're willing to sacrifice yourself for someone you love." Daniel thought of Lily. Then the god revealed the truth. The ancient enemy wasn't trying to escape. It had already escaped. It had been living among humans for centuries, and now it had found a way back into the lake. The lake began changing. Water retreated from the shoreline. Ships tilted sideways. Thousands of fish washed onto the beaches. Then something enormous rose from beneath the lake. A tower, ancient stone, covered in glowing symbols. People across Chicago, Milwaukee, Michigan, and surrounding areas saw it. The world watched. The government attempted to destroy it. Nothing worked. Then more towers rose, one after another. An entire ancient city began emerging from Lake Michigan. And at the center, the god's prison began to open. Daniel discovered the only way to close the prison. Someone had to return the golden mask to the temple. But whoever carried it into the underwater city would not come back. Daniel knew what he had to do. He said goodbye to Lily without telling her why. Then he went into the lake. As he sank deeper, the ancient city came into view. The god watched him. Daniel reached the temple, but before he could place the mask into the altar, the chains around the god broke. Daniel realized the truth. The God wasn't imprisoned by the enemy. The God was imprisoned by the other gods, because the ancient God had betrayed them. Daniel confronted him. "You said you were protecting us." The God looked at him, and for the first time it smiled. "I was." Daniel asked, "From what?" The God looked toward the darkness beneath the city. Something enormous moved. The entire lake shook. The God whispered, "From me." Daniel realized the truth. The God wasn't the prisoner. The God was the warden. The ancient creatures beneath Lake Michigan weren't trying to escape. They were trying to reach the surface because something much older had awakened below them, something even the gods feared. Daniel looked toward the darkness. Two enormous eyes opened. Then another pair. Then another. Thousands of eyes illuminated the darkness beneath the lake. And the God said, "Now you understand why I needed you to find me." Daniel asked, "Why?" The God looked directly at him. "Because the prison doesn't need a God anymore. It needs a human." The screen cuts to black. Then we hear Daniel's voice. "If you're watching this, stay away from Lake Michigan.